groups for their principals. There are, you might have seen when you came out in the entryway, that you could pick up this postcard that you can pass out to someone that says, please participate in our process, and tells them how to find the link. And also, we are promoting our social media campaign called High Quality Ed. And if you were out there, fill out the bubble, and you can be a part of our social media campaign. So thank you to everyone today who participated already, but on your way out, please do it. Okay, so that's the update on where we are with the strategic plan, community outreach and engagement. So I'm going to switch now to talking about indicators. So this gets to be lots of numbers and lots of information. So we thought it was really important, you asked us to, and we also thought it was important to do an accounting of all the status of all of the indicators in the strategic plan for the 2012 one. So just reminding everyone that we have been doing periodically scorecards, and you're not intended to try to read this, it's just a reference point, that we've been producing scorecards on each of the goal areas periodically and reporting them to the appropriate committees. So goal 1 has been report on student success, reported to Student Achievement Committee, Goal 2, staff success to HR committee. I think we've done less reporting on Goal 3 to finance and infrastructure, and you'll see why as we go through the slides. But there's been that ongoing touch point in terms of the indicators. So we're doing today, we will be doing two things. I'm gonna present to you a combination of this accounting of the indicators, but also part of a presentation that we did to the legislature on the progress and strategic plan. And let me tell you why. The reason is because one of the areas that we really want to see improvement in our process is to better align the indicators and initiatives with the strategic plan. So we had more alignment in the last 4 years than we did before, but you'll see it wasn't quite as tight as we think it should be. So I'm going to walk you through this part that says, here's some areas that we see highlights of Goal 1 progress for student success. So several initiatives that were of significance statewide. So we had implementation of Common Core statewide since 2012. We have adopted Common Core instructional materials statewide with a waiver process for schools to select alternatives. There's been a commitment by the board and subsequent implementation of Hawaiian education statewide, which was discussed in HR committee, and multiple initiatives to promote students earning college credit while still in high school, and P20 has been a major supporter of that. So just an example of some highlights of statewide support for Goal 1. Here's a list of various measures where we've seen progress on student success. And I'm not going to read all of them, but I'll just point out a few. Chronic absenteeism. So this is something that I think you're all familiar with at this point. Students who are elementary students absent 15 or more, 10% of days of school of the year, and that has improved. So more students are coming to school, fewer students are chronically absent. And I will also point out since Karen Lee was just here, our college enrollment has gone up in the last 4 years, so more students enrolling in college immediately after high school, and fewer of our graduates going on needing remediation. So more of them are ready for college, prepared for college level work. I think Mitch Doley referenced our NAEP scores, our National Assessment of Educational Progress scores. And this is part of a presentation that was given to the board last fall. So just to remind us that we've seen a lot of improvement over the last 10 years, even though we are not satisfied with the percentage of students who are meeting this benchmark. Okay, but we're one of the top 3 states in terms of gains over the last 10 years on the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And overall, we see a lot of improvement around behavior issues at schools. So less violence, less property issues, less illicit substances. So that's good news. Okay, so now we get to the complicated part of accounting for all the indicators that were in the strategic plan. And we had lots of debates about how to do this, so this is an attempt. So there were a number, so what this shows you are the indicators on which progress has been made, and in parentheses shows you the points change between the baseline, which was 2011-12, and the most recent data available. The footnote of number 1 indicates where their longitudinal data was not available from baseline to current, so we're looking at a shorter period of time. And number 2 is, footnote number 2 is where we thought that we put in a proxy indicator, but we don't think it's very good reflection of what the intent was. But we thought we would try to put our best indicator forward. So we're clearly not going to talk about each of them, but unless you want me to, but then we'll be here till tomorrow. So I will just point out a couple of things. So we see progress in a number of areas, and then challenges in some places where progress wasn't made. I point out on college enrollment. So this was interesting because college enrollment immediately after high school has gone up, but the measure we have been using on the Board of Education scorecard was students enrolling within 16 months of graduation, so 2 years, 2 falls after graduation. And that has gone down 1% between the baseline and now. So the question is, what's our best? Depending on how you cut the data, we get a different picture of whether or not it looks like success or it doesn't look like success, at least on a change measure. So just pointing out that these measures tend to be pretty sensitive to the way we define them and the baseline year we use. So I was really concerned, and you had been concerned in Student Achievement Committee about some of these progress not made areas, about students reporting reports of safety and well-being, our parents' satisfaction and parents' reported involvement all going down since 2011 or 12. And that's concerning, although when I looked at it over a little bit longer horizon, so if the baseline year had been 2010 instead of 2010-11 instead of 11-12, everything would be up. Okay, so the 1 year made a really big difference in the direction of whether or not the change was positive or negative. So there's questions to ask about the quality of the measure as well as what that means over time. So yeah.
Yeah. That high school graduation one, our enrollment, that's only Hawaii colleges, right?
It's actually colleges nationwide.
Okay. So
It's 2- and 4-year colleges. And then just to put a plug for this, immediately after high school, I think is probably, I would think, our best measure, because students who enroll immediately after high school are much more likely to be persisting in college and be successful in earning a degree. And noting that P20 provides, in the College Career Readiness Indicators Report, provide both pieces of data as well as completion data. Okay, so now let's goal 1. So I'm sure you'll have questions, and maybe we can go back at the end to see if you have questions about any of these. So goal 2 is staff success. Several highlights in terms of where there's been significant statewide initiatives. There have been 21 additional paid hours per year for teacher training and professional development since 2013. This is a big investment of the state in providing the additional funding to support this. Beginning teachers statewide have received induction, mentoring, and support for the first 2 years of teaching. And that's more systematic. And you'll see the data coming up that shows what the impact of that we think is. There have been annual evaluations and feedback for improvement for teachers and leaders. This is our educator effectiveness system and our CISA for our administrators. We talked a lot about this in HR committee today. And then collaboration with HSTA on improvements, and this is what the joint committee, which is also part of the HR committee today. So here's some indicators that we think are really important and evident of whether or not we're making progress on goal 2. So this is a chart that shows you the year of hire and then 5 years later for each cohort of hires. And what you'll see is the extent to which the new teachers we hired were still employed at the DOE 5 years later. And you'll see that number rising over the last 5 years. Really important to us to make sure that the teachers that we're hiring are staying, that we're investing in are staying. It helps our students. It means we have to rely less on hiring new teachers. A couple other things, questions we have about the extent to which our administrators and teachers feel like they are moving forward on significant initiatives. So this is a annual survey done with principals, asking them whether or not they have the resources needed to implement, on the left, Common Core, and on the right, the educator evaluation system or effectiveness system for teacher evaluation. And you see over 3 years those numbers increasing pretty significantly. And then a question for teachers about the extent to which they have adjusted their teaching for Common Core. And on the left side, a spring survey that was part of the joint committee HST and GOE survey of teachers asking about the extent to which you, as a teacher, had adjusted your instruction, and you see pretty high levels of agreement on this circle chart. And on the right side is a report from the Hope Street Group State Teacher Fellows Program of teachers asking their colleagues the extent to which they think their colleagues have implemented Common Core. And you see not as high response, but still a fair amount saying at least some. Okay. Goal 2, so we have a number of indicators in the strategic plan, and you'll see here that that we tried our best to provide some reporting back. There's some dissatisfaction with all of the 1s and 2s about the amount of data we have as well as the quality of data we have, and I'll point out some good news things. Under progress made, new teachers who meet with the mentor regularly. So these are the percent of teachers who report, new teachers who report that they've met with their mentor, and that number was plus 47 over the last 4 years. And let me just tell you what, and that number has gone up to from 48% of teachers to 95% of teachers, new teachers saying that they have met with the mentor, which I think is really significant because they're getting more support. Some of the oddballs on this list, leadership, administrator ratings and improvement plans. The change is 0 because they were at 100% before and they're 100% now. Okay, so some of these just are, it's hard, it's just it's tricky to know what data to look at and present to you when we're talking about so many measures. And can't really do a nuanced presentation. Okay. And what was a new one?
I said, which kills you.
Absolutely. Strategic plan, goal 3 progress. Some areas of significant investment and initiatives statewide. We moved over the last 4 years to the Strive High system, which measured school performance on more measures than just straight up percent students proficient on the test. So that was good news. We also have broadband access for every school. There's a reduced backlog of repair and maintenance, and there have been a number of innovative pilots, particularly in some of the wraparound supports with community eligibility program we've talked about in the last few meetings about free lunch school-wide in certain schools, Waikiki with student health, Future Ready with technology, and Zills and School Innovation was part for our lowest performing complexes under race and So a couple of data slides that we showed the legislature that show some progress in this area. Our repair and maintenance backlog has gone down. This is not just since 2012, this is over the long haul. Largely dependent on legislative funding and appropriations, but nonetheless, good news. And also that our bandwidth for use in our schools has increased. So you can see how on the top in the solid bar, on the line, you can see how much the bandwidth has increased overall in the state, as well as major times where we've had online initiatives that we knew would require more bandwidth. And you see that for the most part, our usage in the blue our demand has been under our supply, which is good news. This is statewide, but you also have to know that every time, I don't know if Clyde's an obvious here, but every time he opens up new bandwidth, it gets eaten up right away. So he's tested, once in a while he's tested increasing at a school just to test something, and then taken that pilot test down, and then people notice, they'll call and say what happened, because they start to use whatever we put up for them in terms of internet bandwidth, they use it up right away. Okay.
Which is good.
It's good, but there's an insatiable appetite for making that available. Goal, and I'm sure everyone who's running a business has the same issue there. Okay, goal 3 is our successful systems of support. This is where our measures are also not very well developed. So you can see some of these around internet access, and I can tell you what some of these mean. But I'm not sure that these are all the best, that this is best representation. So look at change, but an attempt to provide you some information. I have a very large spreadsheet with year-over-year data, definitions of all of these indicators, which Jim knows makes me feel comfortable, but is, you all wouldn't want me to show that as a summary.
Tam, does that include charter schools too in that list?
These are, I believe they're not charter schools. These are DOE schools.
So accredited schools doesn't include charter schools?
Correct. Okay. And you remember that the last update of the strategic plan was specific to DOE schools? And one of the things we want to do in this review and update is to be more clear about how charter schools fit in and where the data will be recorded. So here's the overall look at it.
Accreditation policy applies to charters and.
So that might be one area we want to discuss. So in some of the board policies that apply to charters, we might want to include charters. And in some places we have better.
And frankly, charter schools done a good job of accreditation. Excuse me. There's more accredited charter schools than there are public schools on a percentage basis.
I know that answer. I don't know about the charter school comparison, but at the last accounting, 57% of our schools were accredited. And the major issue here is that elementary schools have started to become accredited under the board policy, and the target is for all of them to be accredited, I think by 17, 18, they're all on track for that. Okay, so when we look at this, we have 3 goals. We have every goal has 3 objectives, every objective has strategies, and then strategies have targets. So we have 39. This was an improvement over the prior plan that had 80-something, but 39 is really hard for us to not only track, but also to have a good discussion and understanding about and make sure that it permeates through all of the systems that we're providing and reporting that we're doing. We would like to get down to something like 8 to 10 in this process, but it means making lots of choices. But also, one of the things in the plan that we're trying to work towards is being really specific about the roles of the state, the complex area, and the school, and making sure that the strategic plan focuses on what is for every student in every school in terms of the role that the board and the department will play for reporting and accounting, as well as the supports that we'll provide for every school. That is my presentation today.
Thank you, great presentation. Any questions for Tammy at this point? Board Member Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, but just a little discussion about the number of indicators. I understand and agree about reducing the indicators, I think. It's almost like a negotiation. So if you say 10 and you get 15, that's not so bad. So I understand that. But really, I think we would all be happy with what we cut it in. It's less than half, or 2 per objective. But the more important thing is how those are selected. And I think really kind of 2 things. One, what is, if we're looking at any kind of input or not the final result, then it ought to be something that's critical, that research shows, or data shows, that it really is an indicator of future success. For instance, I don't know the answer, but 9th grade, successful completion of 9th grade, whatever it's called. If that really does predict success, then it would be useful. But Oh, I'm sorry. But if it does not, then, it might be discarded. And then the other thing is, what I've been taught is, be less reliant on inputs and measure more outputs. Because unless you can prove that input really is gonna produce the desired output, so that's my 2 cents. Oh, there was one more thing, or 2 more things, really. Because you mentioned the ESSA plan. Could you provide a template or an outline of what the ESSA plan is gonna look like? I'm not talking about the content. I'm talking about, what like a table of contents or something for, because I don't have my head around what the ESSA plan really is. And like I say, I'm not asking for like a first draft, I'm just saying, like what's the table of contents?
We can go ahead and provide that at a subsequent meeting.
Yeah, or just distribute it.
Yeah, so just so you know, there's 2 things. One thing is, we will have the equivalent of a table of contents and a template that we'll be using for internal planning as we move forward. Probably in October, the federal government will issue an Office of Management and Budget approved template that we have to actually fill in to submit.
But you already know what you're working for right
Yeah.
now. So, and if it might change, fine, you can put an asterisk. Just it'll help me to understand what we're talking about when we talk about ESSA. I hear and see things published that, in my mind, for instance, I heard something today about special ed. To me, IDEA covers special ed. There may be some element in ESSA. That's not the primary law for special ed. IDEA is. So, you can help.
I'll do that. And I just,
Also on the session, maybe the members of the public aren't aware, but, BOE members were interviewed by their consultant. And I would work on a key to the process. So I would like to see some kind of summary of that. I don't know what my fellow board members said. And some board members are going off, and they participated, I would think. And I would like to see, even if it's confidential, some kind of summary of that, so we can get a feel for what we all were talking about.
okay. And just on the first point that you made, we're watching closely, we watch closely what UH has done in terms of moving to 10 performance indicators for the system. And that's really helped everybody focus their attention on some key indicators shared across everyone, even though for managerial purposes, there's a larger numbers of indicators that are being used for management purposes, and then every campus supplements for what matters to their campus. So I think that's a good model for us to be looking at to try to provide some focus.
Board Member Horner?
Years ago, we did a survey of one little high school, kind of a complex in that area. And one of the survey responses from the majority of the teaching staff, at least, was the administrative burden. And you're going out talking to teachers. To me, I go back to that's the line folks. And so I don't, staff development historically was one of our benchmarks. And I don't really see anything where we're proactively listening for a way to take some of the work out of the classroom so they can have more academic success as a quote. I'm not saying it'll be a benchmark we might throw away, but at least it should be on the master list in order to think about.
The master list has an item under goal 3. It's last bullet under progress made. It is the goal objective was to decrease the administrative burden at schools using technology and centralization. And that's operationalized as an indicator based on outstanding work time or outstanding work order response time, which was 93.6% last year. So, not sure this exactly gets at what you're saying, but that was the,
I think it's going there, someone's trying to capture it, but not today. I'd be interested in understanding, is that what the rank and file was saying? In other words, when you go out and talk to them, what is it they're recommending? I remember one of the big issues which we saw, with the student database system was significant improvement. I don't remember when we began this 5 years ago. They were taking roll and you had to sit in the central office and they had to manually keep attendance. So how do we capture that efficiency in the classroom? Pardon?
I think was the question, was how do we capture that information? We don't want to survey everybody to death about
Right.
how much time have you spent, but, so the individual efforts, you see, a purchase order that's now easier to do because a certain line is taken out, but that's nice, but then that's just one piece, so you kind of accumulate anecdotal evidence?
Reducing the teacher evaluation system is certainly going to improve efficiency.
Well,
But-
reduce the amount of time.
Yes. Anyway, my point is that I don't lose sight on the fact that, at least when you reorganize a corporation, part of the job is to take the paperwork out so they can basically be more productive on the line, which is really teaching, not feeding the system paperwork. And a lot of times, if you survey, you find that some of the paperwork we're sending in, people don't even use it. You're going to hear that from the line, though. So it should be coming from the line, from the survey. Thank you.
Board Member Cox.
I guess I'm the bad guy again. Plans are really good to have plans, but push comes to shove, it's the implementation at the schools. And if we don't start, I said this before, we all say we're here for the kids, but we need to make sure that the schools are going to be able to do what they need to do. And how the plan is written has to make sure that the schools are going to have the flexibility they need, because every school is so different, just like every kid is so different. And so I'm in favor of chopping this thing lots smaller, because if you want schools to really know and understand, they don't have a lot of time to be spending reading stuff. They've got to be implementing. And I'm concerned every time we start talking about the strategic plan that we don't keep in mind that what we're setting is general things, but I'm worried about the implementation about, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're going to do that. And I would like to see a lot of the this and that they have to do to meet a certain goal not be there, because I think they know better how to meet certain goals at their own schools. So I have big concerns on that, and when I was interviewed, I said lots about that. So I'm just wondering, because I believe that the schools know best what they need to do to reach certain goals. So that's it. That's all I had to say. And thanks, Tammy. I know you know I was probably going to say that anyway.
Any further questions?
Chair?
Oh, sorry, Stacy.
So with all the stakeholders, we'd love to participate in the conversation. We are touching KP every day in all grades, and we want to make sure that we're supporting your efforts and that we're mirroring and we're consistent with the type of work that we're doing in the libraries. So if we can have some time with meeting with the librarians, especially the children's librarians and the youth librarians, it would be a good opportunity to talk about what we're already doing and then how we can better support you all.
I think we reached out for some other assistance on outreach and strategic plan as well.
Okay, we'll go Vice Chair DeLima and then Board Member Mann.
I wanted to build on what Member Cox spoke about, because to me, the achievement gap is so significant. The fact that we've made no progress on the achievement gap, maybe that's another statement, but I know that it's been part of the superintendent's major objective, and we really haven't done as well as we would like in narrowing the achievement gap. So I think one of the things that we need to focus on is how we're going to, in terms of review of our strategic plan, specifically provide the teachers, the schools with the resources necessary to help those students who are struggling. And I guess that's my mantra, is that initiatives have, in regards to special education teachers, there's been more and more of a discussion about the burdens they have, the lack of resources they have, and so I don't know how that's is going to translate in terms of the strategic plan, but to me, if your achievement gap is significant, and if you have a large segment of our student population struggling, that the only way that we're going to see the kind of progress in terms of narrowing the achievement gap is to focus attention on how to bring up those struggling students. So, and again, that's what I said during my interviews, and I hope that we can see how it's going to translate. So that's where my heart and passion is. Thank you.
I think the achievement gap, if I put money on it today, based on the analysis and the discussion so far, achievement gap will rise really high, and making sure we close that gap and have equity for our students. Reminding everyone that 57% of our students are in our high needs category, especially because our low income numbers have increased so much over the last, since 2008. We're up 22,000 students who are receiving free and reduced lunch. I mean, it's really significant. So for us to not only achieve equity for all of our students and achieve our goal for all students, but to raise our overall performance, we need our high needs students to achieve too. So I would say that that's significant. There's some presumably reallocation of effort and resources that we would put towards that, but we would also be talking about whether or not we needed additional resources, and that would to support this, and we would be looking to have that basic emphasis in place in time to have the discussion for the biennial budget about where some additional resources might be needed.
Okay. Board Member Min?
Yeah, I want to kind of jump on what we're talking about. I think there's been great gains in certain areas, but I think there's a population out there that we really need to look at, and unless we look at that population, it's going to get significantly larger. It's going to be a big burden on society. Now, the strategic plan, what Mr. Hunter was talking about, for me, is like you have the nuts and bolts, fine, but what pulls it together? What will make this really, really successful? One is trust, one is buy-in. And I think the buy-in is that the department is going to, and the board is going to be, I guess, recommending and showing that we trust you folks, we trust principals, we trust administrators. We want to release the control that people have on our system. Because all I hear about a lot of times is controlling. And I don't think we're going to be successful if we control people. If we respect them, if we empower them, we say, you know the best in your class, you tell us what you do. And the principal says, yes, I know what I need for my teachers, and it works its way all the way up, even to the legislature, where they start to release a little more funding. I think that's what really I'm looking at, is the how. How is this plan going to really be implemented? Will they buy into it? And are we really going to present something that says, look, we trust you folks, we appreciate you folks? That's my concern.
So I'm going to try and answer some of these questions myself, because I think Tammy needs some support. The way that Tammy and I have talked about the strategic plan is that we are looking at, from a broader perspective, what we need to get done, what direction we need to take. What I'm expecting is that at the school levels, that they are going to be a part, but they need to provide us with, or provide DOE with some idea of how they're going to accomplish the goals that we set. So from a tactical standpoint, or a more specific standpoint, the schools are going to, we would want the schools to provide their plans. It's not something that we mandate from the top down in the strategic plan. But our responsibility as a board is to set the direction, not to tell them what to do from a tactical standpoint. We would ask them for their ideas. And that's why the input from the community stakeholders, including teachers, principals, and the like, is important. And I think that the scope, and if you look at the number of schools and the progress that Tammy's made so far, is that we've made a lot of inroads in getting that feedback. So hopefully from that feedback will come out, will result in a lot more insight so that we can carefully and methodically and thoughtfully come up with the revision of this plan.
I like the direction.
Thank you. Board Member Holiday.
Actually, I was just going to say the same thing, Chair, about how the phase one of the listening and engagement with the schools is very prominent when you see the list of the focus groups that you've had, and then also the outreach just to the other community members that have oftentimes been marginalized. I noticed you have the Micronesian community, the Filipino community, different communities that oftentimes aren't at the table that you're reaching out to and very proactively reaching out. So I appreciate that.
Frankly, I'm positively surprised at the amount of work that you and your group have done in terms of the outreach. I did not expect this much in such a short period of time, so I commend you for that.
So I want to recognize Courtney Gill here, who is our lead staffer and project manager on the issues. So Courtney's been out to do many focus groups and coordinating, putting together the schedule. We also have the support of the Harold Castle Foundation and the Hawaii Community Foundation now in providing some support, and that helps with some of the expenses to be able to extend the outreach beyond what we originally thought that we could do.
And I would add that not only are you guys reaching out, but other community stakeholders are starting to reach out to you because they're asking for a voice. And I know the Hawaii Community Foundation's already asked me to speak to them. I'm going to ask you to help me with that discussion. But there are a lot of community stakeholders within that organization, as you well know, that are going to be important stakeholders and need to have a voice.
And I'll mention with great appreciation that the Hope Street Group State Teacher Fellows program, which came to present several months ago to you, has been fantastic in reaching out not only to teachers, their teacher colleagues around the state, but also in helping staff a lot of these focus groups. So when we went out to Olamana, and I went out to Center for Tomorrow's Leaders, which are students, leaders on a Saturday, they came out with us. So that has been fantastic. And Representative Takashi Ono over there just volunteered to lead some focus groups too. So I'm very excited about that because part of the buy-in is about people having their voice be heard.
I took the survey, by the way. And it does work. I would encourage everybody to take that survey. It's not as painful as one might think. Board member Asselweis.
As much as many of our indicators may or may not, last through this process or pop up again, it seems to me that one that has to, for our students to be successful, is the parent-family engagement. And there's very limited parent outreach, and I know it's hard because you and I are like some of the two parents that show up at our public schools sometimes. So it's hard, and parents are busy. There's a chunk of educating that needs to go along with feedback on a strategic plan. But if we really value and honestly want to do community engagement, first and foremost is the parents and families. And I know, where I work, we're looking at some of the feedback from schools and complexes in the area where they're looking at the belief systems of teachers, and those teachers are reflecting, where are the parents? Why do you want me to do all of this? Where are the parents in this game? And to get the parents in the game, they have to know why they need to be involved, and they have to buy into this whole thing. And so, again, I know how hard it is to get them to the table. I don't know how many parent meetings I've been to where we're like, well, is anybody else coming? So it is hard. Groups like, Parents for Public Schools and others, can help to build in audience places, but I'm, in my short time left, I'm willing to work with you on that, and Allison and I have been talking about the student voice and student engagement in this process, and I love what they have to say. It's so very, very different a lot of times than what adults have to say. And so that much more meaningful in this process. So thanks, Tammy, and your crew for all your work that you're doing on this. We really appreciate it, and this is crazy. Good job.
Any further questions? Okay, Tammy, I'm going to ask you to stay if you don't mind. We're going to get now on the agenda item an update on the Governor's Every Student Succeeds Act team. I'd like to call on Darryl Galera, the team leader, to present on this agenda item. Good evening, Darryl. And just for clarification, the reason why I'd like to have both of you at the desk is so that the board members do have an opportunity to perhaps ask questions of both of you as we try to coordinate or you collaborate on the commissions. And I know there was a question by Board Member Williams about the ESSA plan, which I think the task group has also been given the responsibility for. So it's going to be interesting to see how, again, you both collaborate on the plan and whether or not there's going to be more than one plan. Hopefully not. Okay, so you can go it down.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, and superintendent. I just was asked to give an update of the Governor's ESSA team, and so I shared listing of the meeting schedule that we just developed and some examples of some of the handouts that we've been looking at. So the Governor's ESSA team, they hit the ground running, and we just had our second meeting, and so we've been all being formed and in action for about 2 weeks now. We, as you can see from the schedule of meetings, it's a very ambitious schedule to meet the governor's request for us to do an assessment of the education system and identify priorities, and in his words, come up with a blueprint. We have been spending the first couple of meetings organizing and then trying to get, we have a very large task force. It's like a whole offense and defensive unit on the football team. So, but we're trying to get everyone on the same page, and we have members here. Board Member Hubert Min is on our task force, Representative Takashi Ono, Student Board Member Brennan Lee is on our group. And so, again, they may be able to respond to any questions that you may have. But just to give you some examples of what we've been doing so far, we've heard from Governor Ige, and he spent a great deal of time with the task force sharing his vision of what he wants to see, and again, and also sharing his call to action to the team. And so we're kind of taking that's our marching orders in terms of the work that we have to do. Governor Ige was very specific to us. He says, I want you to begin with a blank sheet. He says, I want you to not have any limits. I want you to think that anything is possible. And he said he wants to have a vision and a blueprint for how we can improve public education in Hawaii for the future. And he mentioned, 40, 50 years, we want to make sure we're doing much better in terms of what we continue to support. We've been trying to provide briefings for our team. I shared with you some of the information. We have an exceptional presentation from Assistant Superintendent Tammy Chun this past Saturday, where she briefed the whole team on the strategic plan, and we had a good discussion. We've had briefings on early education. So State Director Lauren Moriguchi did also an excellent presentation, shared with us some very important insights and keys to think about for, again, to meet the governor's vision. We also had a presentation by Ida Lee Sinclair and Martha Guinan and the leaders of the Special Ed Advisory Council, as again, we've been looking at this issue of equity and again, how to really think deeply about some of the issues that have been a challenge for us in education. So and our agendas moving forward are all filled incredibly. It's like this is like a crazy task that we have in the short amount of time, because of the short amount of time. But for example, I think in our next meeting, we're still talking about equity, and we're asking Board Member Halagao to share with us on her insights and her wisdom about ELL and the new policies and some of the new things that we think about. And we're talking about just about every issue that we think we need to talk about, from school accountability to teacher support and principal support to parent support. We had a briefing on standards. We'll be focusing on school accountability, and so it's the whole realm of everything to try to meet the governor's challenge of his vision, yet while aligning with what we know needs to be some of the focus areas of the ESL law, and to bring all that together to again meet the governor's request for blueprint. If you look at the schedules, you'll see that the governor has asked us to convene an education summit on Saturday, July 9th. And so the specific details and the agenda is still being worked on by the governor's office, but we're working with the National Governors Association and also with the National Association of State Legislatures, and also with Senator Lamar Alexander's office in terms of some of the resources that we'll be bringing to Hawaii for this education summit, and we're hoping that everyone will come and it'll be an opportunity to engage stakeholders and get input and feedback and recommendations. So I didn't prepare a PowerPoint slide presentation for you, but I just wanted to give you a quick update. I believe that we can provide something very substantive for you. Probably the first meeting, your first board meeting in July, because we're planning at that point to be sharing some of our preliminary or initial recommendations and findings that we want to take to the Education Summit to get more feedback and input from everyone. So, I'll just open up if you have any questions.
Any questions for Darrell? I'm going to have a few questions. I guess as I look at your meeting schedule that includes town hall meetings, and I can't necessarily reconcile the town hall meetings that you're scheduling with the ones that Tammy has scheduled or has already done. So I'm just going to presume at this point that there's collaboration or coordination, I should say, with regards to having the outreach.
We will be comparing notes and collaborating and trying to work very closely. I did want to share, this is a point that we already have been working very closely in sharing all the information. Actually, the first people that I apologize is Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent Tammy Chung. When we share information, and then we share it to the board. But we've been trying to be very transparent, and we've been very supportive of everything that the superintendent is doing. We've been telling all of our members to complete those same surveys. Every time we speak at a public meeting, we're sharing about the department's approach and all of the opportunities for input and all of the wonderful things that are happening there. So we are trying to work very much in partnership.
Does that mean that some of your task group members are also planning to attend some of the outreach meetings with the stakeholders going forward, or are you waiting, or would you be waiting for Tammy's group maybe to get the input and then sharing that with the group?
I think we could do both. I think we'd be happy. I would be happy to attend any meetings. I did attend a meeting, a focus group meeting where I was at the advisory council for the special advisory council. They were doing a focus group on the strategic plan. So I was very fortunate to participate in that. So, and I will continue doing that, and our group would also want to do all of that. whatever opportunities. The scheduling is something that I heard the governor's office talking about too, that we have to kind of not drive people crazy and make it make sense, so I believe that we're gonna be working to reconcile that. Yeah, this schedule was developed through creative by the governor's office, and I'm just sharing with you. I think it's very flexible, and we're gonna be hopefully making some changes to it and making and working together.
Any comments from you, Tammy?
So this is the first time I've seen the schedule, but I would say I think there's some opportunities to bring this together. I think that in terms of making sure it makes sense for the community, I think our outreach right now is through May 30, or aggressive outreach is through May 31st in this phase of the listening. And so I think Darrell was really helpful in sending out our request to try to get some of the task force members to participate, and then in the survey and share with their networks. At least one of them reached out and said she was interested in the focus group material to potentially run her own focus group. So that's helpful. I think that there's the town halls that are listed here, and they're starting in late July. So there's potential. We hadn't actually planned for town halls. We were hoping to coordinate with board members on using the Board of Ed community meetings as a primary way to take our drafts out to the field and get feedback from the community. I don't know what kind of collaboration between the board and the department and the governor's office is possible, but that might be kind of a good a place where they might come together in the back to school time. So I think there's that opportunity. I'm a little bit concerned. I mentioned to Darrell, I learned about this yesterday or this morning about the timing of the summit. I'm just a little concerned because it's July 9th, and that is kind of just in the dead time for us, where we're processing all the feedback from the outreach. We won't have a report yet from the outreach, and just ahead of where we're ready to share the big ideas on the basis of the business analysis and outreach with the community. So there's some timing issues around the timing of the summit. So we'll see. I think we'll see what we can do. I just want to make sure, that we make sure that it's really coherent to the community about what they're participating in, what they're being asked to give feedback on, so that we're not creating confusion. Or input's always good. It's just a matter of organizing and explaining.
We're at a critical time, certainly with the amount of outreach you've done already, Tammy, that when the ESSA or the ESSA group starts doing these town hall meetings, there has to be a framework or a way to communicate this in a way that, again, it ensures that the people that we're getting input from understand the purpose of this, that is, again, a shared goal for both your side and your side.
The challenge would be if there's, I think, initial findings and recommendations coming out of the governor's task force in early July, and then out of the department separately in later July, then we'll have confusion. So there needs to be some reconciliation, I think. Or figure out how to make the effort complementary to one another.
And from the governor's team perspective, we plan to be very transparent in whatever's being discussed and suggested and proposed, and it will be shared in the right meeting. There's nothing about this. Sorry. Although I said, we're hoping to have some preliminary type of recommendations in July. Anything that we come before that, we will share with all.
Then how do you envision the crafting of the ESSA plan moving forward? You've got a deadline, November or so, and we've got our strategic plan. How does this, how would the board members envision the plan that you have as it pertains to the strategic plan? Would it be folded in? Would it be separate? How would you guys look at it?
We've been having that same discussion. My thoughts right now is that we, as a team, we are advising the governor. We are basically doing our work in line with the governor's vision. And so that's how we're crafting our work right now. So as we provide guidance and the recommendations to the governor, how he will bring that to the board or to the department.
Probably it's incumbent upon us, maybe as a board, to communicate more clearly with the governor and understand where he's coming from with regards to this plan. But he knows where we are on the strategic plan at this point. So I just want to make sure that there's clarity again as to the role of both plans. Board Member Williams.
Chair, I have a very clear understanding of the responsibilities, and I just want to confirm it. And that is that DOE and TAMI, and specifically and DOE generally, are not only just working on a strategic plan, which is a board DOE activity that TAMI's spearheading, but the DOE as the SCA is the responsible organization to prepare the ESSA plan, both by Hawaii statute and the ESSA statute. What I read in ESSA is that the SCA shall consult with a wide range of stakeholders, and specifically including the governor. So whatever is coming out of the ESSA team that the governor has, in my mind, is not the plan. The plan is to be prepared by the DOE.
Board Member Bin.
I think the plan is the Board of Education will finalize the final plan. Okay, whatever the DOE presents to us, the board is the one that makes the final decision. I think the governor's plan is to provide us with input and information that may enhance our decision. Not to take the place of the plan, but to come before the board and say, board, this is what we found out. Now, use it, compare it, and see what we can come up with the best plan for our state. And that's the way I look at my role there. Not to come up and say, hey, here's a new plan, Dewey. Here's superintendent. No, it's to work collaboratively together and with something so important, not miss anything that would really hurt us. So I look at it more as a really good thing that we can kind of move together, help each other. If we miss something, you can let us know. And we work all together. That's my idea of the plan. So.
Thank you. Vice Chair DeLima.
I appreciate the work that everybody's involved with, because quite frankly, everything is going to come down to resources. We can have the best plans, but unless we get them funded, unless we provide schools adequate funding, there's never going to be empowerment for the schools. If principals are going to be making decisions on what not to fund, what classes not to have, what staff not to hire, it's not fun. They're struggling right now at the schools. So to me, the governor is our leader of our state. He got elected by the people. He went to the legislature proposing certain resources to be allocated to the department. The problem is the task force has those legislators who are very supportive of public education. We need more legislators understanding the role of public education and the need for more resources. So the way I look at it, the more meetings that you go out into the community, not only to hear, but to educate, is very important. I'm hoping that there's going to be a recognition that the charter schools are struggling because they have lack of funds. And the reason that there's a concern about compliance at the charter schools is because every one of those charter schools are struggling to make ends meet. So when they're struggling to make ends meet, and when questions are asked, they don't have enough staff in order to provide the information perhaps in a timely way because they're struggling. So I'm just hoping that with the governor's leadership, with everybody's cooperation and collaboration, that next legislative session, we can all go to the legislature, HSDA,